The idea is to have a legal environment in which somebody that sees that in his job something is happening which is wrong, he gives advice to his superiors and he doesn't see anything done about it. In cases where people's lives are put at risk, the public interest is losing money because of somebody else's mismanagement of funds, you need to have a legal procedure in which this person will be able to report this and be protected, so that if what he is reporting is correct, and eventually there is a conviction or some sort of a punishment to whoever are responsible, we want this person to be protected. But on the other hand, we need to make sure that you don't get mismanagement of these procedures, so that whoever there is a report against him is also protected until proven correct.
Right, and this is the difficulty, isn't it? Because the other thing is, I mean, we have to separate here, I think, the public and private sectors, don't we? Because my understanding is that, in theory at least, we do have some form of law here that's supposed to protect civil servants via an unfair dismissal law. Is that right?
It's not an easy case to fire. It's not easy to fire a civil servant, but it's very easy to generate a lot of problems to him. So if someone is looking for a revenge or somebody is looking for a way to harm a civil servant, it's not difficult to do.
And what about in the private sector? Is it very different?
In the private sector, all the large corporations, and I say all, and I mean all, the large corporations, they have procedures for reporting this. So even the corporations in Cyprus that have offices in Cyprus, you will find that they have a whistleblowing procedure for this.
And does it work, if you know? And if so, why isn't it copied more widely?
It works, and it's important to know that if you are in charge of a sector somewhere in industry or in government, and there is such a procedure, and you know that the people in your service are aware of what you're doing, you'll be very afraid to continue doing it, or you'll refrain from doing it. So just the existence of it will deter a lot of people from actually doing anything wrong or badly.
Now you mentioned at the beginning the misuse of funds or wasting of money or whatever. If we had routine transparency in our system here in Cyprus, you probably wouldn't need whistleblowers. Why can't I go, or any journalist or even any citizen and taxpayer, go to various authorities and say, I want to see your books. Where are your published accounts?
Exactly. This is the reason why I also supported, and I'm a member of a committee that's actually pushing for transparency, and I supported that very much. But it's not always, it's something that we should do, but you don't always get all the information you need through this procedure, because you must be aware that there are other things apart from transparency. For instance, if my boss is publishing a tender and I know that within the tender certain terms and conditions are set so that when the tenders are in, somebody will have a benefit, or if I know that the period given in the tenders is very short and somebody already has the tender in his hand and has prepared, he had more time than the rest, these will not come out in a transparency procedure. So there are a lot of ground to cover with the whistleblowing procedures that we have that is not covered by the transparency law, which is also very important to have.
Now, we keep hearing from the current government that they want transparency. Have they done anything in their first 7 or 8 months in power to move forward on this? One should really think that every single taxpayer should have a right to know where his or her money is being spent.
It is it is a very difficult topic to touch because there are certain things that by law would prevent transparency. I can give you an example. For instance, all the decisions of the Council of Ministers in Cyprus are by de facto are not publishable. You're not supposed to see them. But we also have, I must say this, we have also a regulation, a European Union regulation, which needs to be implemented. It's not a matter of choice for a country to implement it or not. It has to be implemented as it is. And this regulation obliges every country in Europe to provide information to ask the public opinion, that is to public consultation, and also give the procedures for any citizen of a country to take his country to court, take legal measures against it. And for those that want to search for this, I'm talking about the regulation 1367 of 2006. So this gives the public a lot of power to go and ask for information. But you see, if you go to ask for information, the chances are that the information is not there, it's not written, nobody has it, they won't give it to you because they doubt whether they are allowed to give it to you. There are all these problems that come into action whenever one tries to implement this right.
So what we need is a very straightforward law, surely, saying these people are all, if not every citizen, certain sectors of society, and I'm thinking of lawyers and journalists or whatever, are entitled to request information. Because nobody's got anything to hide. What's the problem?
We are in a country that is not used to giving information. Let me remind everyone that 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was this report on how each country behaves with regards to giving out information to the public. And Cyprus is below even Yemen. I think it's the bottom of the list. We are not a country that is geared to give information and to support the public in asking for support documents and stuff like that.
Which is very worrying considering the level of education we have in Cyprus. Why aren't more people banging on doors and shouting about this?
Well, there was a commissioner, for instance. Just to give you an example, a lot of the students that were doing projects, final year projects, their PhDs, their MSc reports or whatever they were doing at the university, although there is a special law in Cyprus, it's 119 of 2004 that gives everybody access to environmental information. You'll find that a lot of the students found it very difficult to get the information, and they kept asking me to intervene to get the information from the various government departments, because they will say definitely no to students, and then a student had to go and find another way to access the information. There are, for instance, things like, you sign a contract with a company, and nobody knows the content of the contract. And we have all these problems and all these things, the discussions that go on, and nobody knows the content of the contract. And we don't even publish who got the contract signed. It's buried within the legal positions in Cyprus that the transparency law will give us this access, but we also need to make sure that every time we change a law, we modify, we do amendments or whatever, we introduce this transparency within the law as well.
And do you see us anywhere near doing that, Pambos? Because this has gone on long enough, surely, hasn't it?
No. Actually, it's in the Marie explosion, for instance, around that time, I published an article about this, and it had the title that "My Boss is Stealing," and it was published in all the papers. And based on that article, you will see certain paragraphs from my article that were used in the report that followed the events, because we had these things in operation. It was very difficult. Certain people were trying to notify seniors, and their advice wasn't getting through. It's not always about money. It's about safety. It's about saving lives. It's about protecting the environment. So we need
listen, in the private sector, it's about corporate and individual responsibility. In the public sector, it's also surely about responsibility. And governments have a responsibility not only to ensure that their employees are doing the right thing, but also that the people those employees are supposed to be serving can see that they're doing the right thing.
But you'll find a politician getting in trouble for not doing the right thing, but you will never find a civil servant getting in trouble for not doing the right thing.
Why not?
The politician is exposed to the public, the newspapers, everybody is asking for an accountability from him. The way you are organized in Cyprus, accountability of the civil service is not to the level that people think that it is. It needs to be improved immensely. And there are many examples to show these up to now. And you see contracts that are signed that give tremendous advantages to the private sector, the companies that sign the contract. You see decisions making that we spend money to build an army camp, and 3 months later we abandoned it. And nobody was asking for responsibility for decisions like this. There are many examples to do this. But the truth is that if a politician is involved in one of these, all the media will go on to the politician. Eventually will press him to resign. We don't see this happening within the civil service or even within the semi-government organization.
Do we therefore what is needed to change that? Because it's interesting you're talking about this. My 7 o'clock tomorrow evening guest is our Civil Service Reform Commissioner, Manuela Lambrianido, who will be fascinating to talk to. But one of the things I will definitely, be asking her is how you change the system as it is now to make for not only productivity, which is the big thing in terms of the economic situation, but accountability as well.
Yes, it's something that needs to be introduced within the duties when you are appointed in government. This needs to be introduced, or it needs to be introduced into the civil service law, which is the law 1 of 1990, which describes the operation of the civil service. And within that law, to go back to whistleblowing, we needed to change the law to introduce whistleblowing, because we were asked by the European Union to do this before we entered the Union in 2004. And what we did there, we just introduced a phrase that says that if a civil servant is aware of wrongdoings, for instance, something like that, he needs to report it to his seniors. That's all.
Very difficult if the wrongdoing is his senior, isn't it?
Of course.
So that doesn't work, does it? We need a new model, do we?
We need a very well-written law to do this, separate from the civil service law, that will apply to civil service, semi-government organizations as well, and all the new bodies that we set up and run after the accession to the European Union. Yeah,
so it needs a total overhaul, you're saying, basically, Pambos?
It needs a total overhaul, and that should not exempt the army. We have seen what is happening if one is not properly managing certain things. We have seen the explosion in Marine. It had nothing to do with national security. It's a mismanagement, hence the explosion. I'm sure there were a lot of people there at the time that knew a lot of things, but we never heard of anything. So we need to have that. And I'm sure that there were people in banks that knew what was happening in the banking sector as well. So we need to have a way, at least. We hope that if the way is there, the procedure, people will come forward.
The one thing I did bring up when we were talking about this on Monday with Maria Gabardis from the University of Technology, who's in the Transparency International Cyprus organization, was the fact that we're a bit of a disadvantage, aren't we, being such a small place, because most people either know or are related to an awful lot of other people, and I guess these sort of activities are considered, what, disloyal?
Yes, it makes it very difficult if you have that. This is, I think, anybody that knows Cyprus society, we know that if you sit with a Cypriot, within 5 minutes you find common people that you know, both of the people in this country. It's very easy to find relations and common friends. So this makes it very, very difficult. I agree. But we need to start, we need to get it up and running, we need to move forward, we need the legal framework to be able to do this, and we need definitely the support of the politicians. I know a lot of the politicians will suffer from this, from what we hear, and we read in the papers daily, but we need to go forward.
We need, surely, above everything else, to value integrity.
Exactly, and accountability.